happens all the time, especially like hotel rooms in the middle of the night, and you start cranking down the thermostat because you're uncomfortable. And it's usually not a temperature situation. Yeah. It's a humidity situation is what's causing that.
Welcome to the Flow Lab, the podcast where we dive deep into the science of building performance and HVAC innovations. Today we bring you another insightful episode aimed to enhance your knowledge and expertise in the field. Joining us are your co-hosts, Ben Walker, co-CEO of Retrofitting, and Sam Myers, a renowned building science specialist and Retrofitting trainer. Together, they bring a wealth of experience and knowledge to ensure our discussions are both informative and engaging. So, sit back, relax, and get ready to enter the Flow Lab, where we'll explore the world of building performance. Let's get started.
Well, yeah, I know you guys have been pretty busy over at Santa Fe. You guys have some new products out, and I know, as I get involved with projects here in Eastern North Carolina, I just see more and more ventilating dehumidifiers going in because it just makes so much sense. I was kind of thinking about it earlier, like a lot of times when we go into existing homes that are having comfort problems or high humidity problems, it's like a way that I like to recommend things is to do things in stages, right? And that ventilating dehumidifier is usually that first step. It's like, okay, let's get this thing in to kind of help bring the humidity down a little bit. And if you're still happy, if you're happy after that, we can stop. But if we're not quite there yet, then we can look at air sealing or something else. So they've been a hit around here for sure.
Well, that's good. That's good. And
yeah,
I kind of go the other way. I'm like, you probably should start with your air sealing.
Yeah.
and then
well, I say that because of the budget, right? I mean, usually, if you're going to do like a full attic encapsulation, like if you're going to spray foam a roof deck or something, that's way up there. But if we're just putting in a ventilating dehumidifier, if we're not trying to put that much of an investment in it first, then that's usually the most enticing place for a homeowner to go to.
And the air sealing to me is like, can we tighten it up as much as possible with the least amount of investment? Can we get some caulk out and start sealing some stuff?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And then from there, not usually going straight to spray foam. But
yeah, it depends on the house.
It depends on the people in the house. And it depends.
That's always
our motto.
That's always the answer. It's never simple.
Steve Basic doesn't like that answer. He's like, no, it doesn't depend. He's like, give an answer. I'm like, there's so many unknowns.
I was just curious because when I was at Bill Spone's home, we were talking a little bit about this, but it's okay to actually put the dehumidifier located anywhere within the envelope, really, right? And it'll do its job.
You can place it there, but then you got to figure out if you're going to duct it, how you're going to get the air so it's moving and circulating throughout the house. So if we have a basement, like Bill's basement, if you're just going to set one down there as a standalone, because we have standalone units, and I think that's what Bill has at his house as a standalone unit.
Yeah, I believe so.
I would still recommend ducting the supply of that dehumidifier with some flex duct, at least like 10 feet away, just in that space, because air movement.
Otherwise just circulating around into itself or something like that.
Well, you do create a microclimate because that sensor is located right in front of the dehumidifier. So pretty soon it's going to start reading that dry air coming out of the back of it. That sensor is going to read it, and you're going to get short cycling. 10 feet of flex duct, because air movement is just as important. We want mixing going around in that whole space, getting to the farthest corners. That's why, the Advance, we used to have the Santa Fe Advance that had the dual ducts on the side, the dual exhaust, I should say, not ducts, exhaust. And then we just launched the Advanced Dry 110 that brought back that dual exhaust because the industry loved it. And you can get 2 flex ducts on that and get farthest corners of that crawl space or basement, get air moving. Now we also have digital control on it. We've got built-in P-trap, so you don't, it's a taller unit than our compact, but now you don't have to actually get a P-trap also on top of the taller unit. So for crawl spaces, that's really important, a built-in P-trap. Now you can have it level, sitting right on the ground and not have to worry about that, 4 to 6 inches for a P-trap.
No, that's nice.
Yeah, gotcha.
So, it's a ball trap. It's really, we have a video on our website. It's really cool. It's a little ball that goes inside the unit, and it, kind of has that water going back and forth and letting it out down the drain tube. Because of where our fan is located in the unit, the reason that you have to have a trap is it'll pull the water back into the unit. And then what happens is, like, one corner will start leaking, and people will think there's something wrong with their dehumidifier.
Right, yeah.
You just don't have a good trap on it. But now, we've eliminated that. But it's one of those things too, that when you maintain the unit, put in, change out your filter, anything like that, you're going to have to make sure that you're, looking inside there and making sure that everything's clean, just like you would with your drain tube and all that. So, but it does help a lot in those spaces where we don't have a lot of height.
Yeah, nice.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome.
So, but it is important. Yeah. Like Bill's. Now, you were ducting a unit. You can pull from a central location to the unit, give it its own, but you got to figure out, how am I going to duct that dry air throughout the entire house, because we're compartmentalized up there, right? So we want to make sure that we're getting good distribution throughout the house, and mostly because of fresh air. If we're using it for outdoor air, we want to make sure that, bedrooms and areas where we're spending a lot of time with a lot of people, that we're getting that outdoor air to the areas for indoor air quality, because that's why we ventilate. And then, getting that air distribution. But what we are seeing more and more, if possible, is if we've got a vaulted ceiling with really high ceilings, is that we'll pull in from a central location, but we might drop all of the ducted dry air up into that ceiling area, because a byproduct of dehumidifying is heat.
Yeah.
Right.
So we are creating heat, and usually it's about 15 to 20 degrees more warmer air coming out of the unit than the air going into it.
Gotcha.
So we have to make sure that we're taking that into account. That's why when we do put it into a duct system, it usually will distribute throughout that supply duct work, and hopefully we don't have our first supply register right over the lazy boy in the living room. Or we might create
actually at my house that's actually the case, actually.
We might have an issue. But water vapor is lighter than air, so we're going to accumulate higher RHs, or have a higher RH at the ceiling than we are lower. So if we can blow that warm, dry air up at the ceiling where nobody's going to feel it, then that's a good strategy as well. And we're seeing more and more with ductless mini splits where we don't have duct work, and then the ventilating dehumidifier becomes basically everything that you took out of that system to make it ductless, right? We become the ventilation, the filtration, because we've got the MERV 13 filter, air distribution, because stagnant air is uncomfortable, and then dehumidification. So basically everything you took out of a traditional air handler HVAC system, we become once you make it ductless.
Yeah, as far as air, that dehumidifier air mixing into the supply trunk, the importance of not having other supply ducts around. I learned that the hard way for the first time when we first installed my dehumidifier here 5 years ago. And there was a bedroom supply right next to where the dehumidifier dumped in. And it was weird because there were two other supplies right across from it. And you would think that dehumidifier air would just go straight into there, but instead it just made this like U-turn and went right into the one next to it. Yes, because that one bedroom was always way hotter. So we just disconnected those, moved them down, and that fixed it.
85% of our business is retro. Because I get that question a lot. Oh, can you retro this? And I'm like, yep, that's our business. Because it's going in usually to fix a problem, right? So, but it's very challenging with duct work that's already there. Nobody has put any thought into adding a dehumidifier at some point to these systems. So it can become very challenging, and you have to start thinking through a lot more than just, oh, I'm going to add a dehumidifier. And then they get there and they're like, oh, this is a little bit more than I thought it was going to be. So you got to think through it.
Yeah, got to have a good plan.
We are getting more and more of the home performance contractors that have been given the tools and are searching for the education to think all of these things through. First of all, the house is a system, and then, and that's, the HVAC contractors. For me to be working with these contractors now that are like, oh, and, we'll do a blower door test. And I'm like, wow, HVAC contractors, that's what we need. They're advocating in the industry for more education. And they want to understand how everything's working. And then how do all these systems work together? And given, 10 years ago to where we are now, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. And it's just a nice option to be able to add in, because the house is a system. There's so many things that we can do to fix things to make air cleaner, less humid. But, if we have one device that can just help with that latent capacity and bring in a little fresh air, then it kind of helps you, like you can do things at little different stages. Like maybe we've seen a lot of cases where for some houses that aren't terribly tight, but are still having these issues, like maybe around 5 ACH 50. That's not terrible. It could be a lot better, but it's still enough sometimes to produce those issues. And so sometimes if you just need a little bit more help with that latent capacity, that dehumidifier sometimes is all you need. Yeah. So it's nice to do things in steps.
There's so many, during my presentations, I always put up this list, and I don't know, maybe there's 10 to 15 things on this list that all can contribute to high moisture in a home. You've got the people, you've got too tight of a house, too leaky of a house, really energy efficient HVAC equipment that's energy efficient at getting to the sensible, to the temperature. We've got mild temperatures outside, but high dew points. Mechanical ventilation. There's all these things that can contribute to high moisture in the home. And you might not ever be able to pinpoint the one that's contributing to the problem, because if they all add a little bit, it can add up to a lot.
Yeah.
And so, some people always want the smoking gun, and you might not be able to ever find it. Because there's so many things. People are the number one wild card, right? How they live, how they're going to control the system. You can design a system perfect, you can install it perfect, you can commission it, and then once you hand that thermostat over to the homeowners, all bets are off. You don't know how they're going to live in that house.
Yeah.
What I want the thermostat at and what my husband wants the thermostat at are two different things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we especially see, issues with this in like senior housing. Because, where they want the thermostat is typically at 78, 80 degrees.
Yeah, especially if they're on blood thinners. Then, yeah.
Yeah, and even as we get older, our blood just becomes naturally thinner anyways. So then you add medication on top of that. And so that is really challenging, because, again, we're counting on a system to remove moisture based on our temperature comfort level.
Yeah.
And that's
and most homeowners are just looking at that one number, right?
That's
just
it.
The temperature. And that other number, the humidity level, is equally important. Yeah. It's going to affect how that temperature feels.
It happens all the time, especially like hotel rooms, but you'll notice it, and that's when you start thinking about it more. But you get up in the middle of the night and you start cranking down the thermostat because you're uncomfortable. And it's usually not a temperature situation. It's a humidity situation is what's causing that. The stranger part of that, I will say, is that our building code allows us to condition our crawl spaces based on the occupant's comfort level in the living space. So if you close a crawl space, you have to either do exhaust ventilation or exhaust ventilation out of the space. You can do supply from the supply of the AC system. Now, both of those now in current code require you to have communication between the living space and the crawl space, which, we've been in a lot of crawl spaces, right? I don't
Yeah.
care.
No, I'm sorry.
I don't care how well I don't want communication.
Yeah, that's just not the air I want to breathe.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
and I've seen some beautiful crawl spaces, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of things going on. You've got, your pest contractor that's spraying down there. You've got pressure treated wood going on. There's a lot of things going on. I just don't ever want to share that air. But again, we're trying to and the supply, the supply is the most common that I see used because it's the least expensive up front.
Yeah.
Right. I just got to put some, which, most HVAC contractors aren't going to like that. You're now messing with their existing duct work by putting a supply register into that space. And most homeowners don't want that another vent that's being, put into their floor to share the air between the living space and the crawl space. But all you really care about is the moisture. If you've done a decent job of closing up that space, it's in the ground. It shouldn't be that drastically different than the living space. And, why aren't we just putting a dehumidifier and keeping everything closed and isolated from each other and just controlling the moisture when we need to?
Yeah, we don't live down there. And
No.
It doesn't have to be comfortable. It just has to be dry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if it's done correctly, it probably is still fairly comfortable. Like a lot of basements that you don't see any conditioning supply duct work in, you see it. But yeah, it shouldn't be that different than the living space. But all we care about is the moisture, keeping that RH, at a below 60.
Yeah, back when I was at Advanced Energy, we learned a couple of things about having supplies in crawl spaces. One was that during the shoulder seasons, that humidity level would come up because we weren't getting the run time. So, if the HVAC system isn't going to run, then you're not drying that space out. So spring and fall, those spaces really suffered once we actually did the data logging on it. And then the other one too is if you only have a supply, that air can't get back to the main return. So you can cause the main body of the house to go a little more negative and leak harder where it wouldn't otherwise. So those are really the two reasons why I just say, don't do that. Put a dehumidifier in there instead. Just keep it isolated.
A lot of times crawl space contractors are not HVAC contractors. We're seeing more HVAC contractors kind of get into that area as well. But to start messing with the HVAC system can be scary. You don't want to do that. Just keep the system separate. And I think that's the best approach to that. And we're seeing more and more contractors getting into closing up crawl spaces, homeowners wanting their crawl spaces closed up, being able to control what's below their house because they know that that's affecting their comfort, their health in the space. Plus, it's preserving their home. It's property protection.
Yeah, that's what it sits on. It's got to work.
Your foundation is, you got to protect it. You got to protect it.
There's a lot of parallels between, sealing up crawl spaces and sealing up attics from what I've seen.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the times there's just a lot of guesswork. Let's just hit it with this and hope for the best. When really the measuring it before and after, it's not hard and it doesn't take a lot of time. And it's such important information to have.
It's extremely important information and your homeowners are paying you to do that. So being able to show what the problem is before and show that you have, addressed that to me is really important. I mean, we have, we do our crawl space encapsulation course, our 2-day class that the building science of closing up crawl spaces. We worked with Advanced Energy on the how-to guide. And, we worked with Joe Steenbrook and Allison Bales and Paul Hardy from the pest industry. And, my husband, Chris Conway, reviewed it from a building science perspective. And it's a building science. It's the only one that I know of out there. 2-day course that we do down in outside of Atlanta at a partner of ours, Reach Drying Academy, because they have a flood house. they specialize in restoration. And so they have a flood house, but they have a crawl space. So you have classroom and you got hands-on on encapsulating a crawl space. But one of the questions that, comes up quite a bit is, how can we verify to homeowners that we've actually, closed that space? And so it's one of those questions that we get, is there a protocol that we can follow that kind of shows that? So I think that would be very interesting to be able maybe to demonstrate, how to be able to do some of this stuff.
Well, I think, that kind of complicated neutralization test I talked about before. I mean, all that, if that's all we want to do is just prove effectiveness. I mean, if we have a somewhat leaky house and all we do, the only thing that we change is encapsulating the crawl space. If it's done correctly, then your blower door number should be better.
Yeah.
So if you just do a before and after test of the whole house, I mean, that'll show that you did something.
And I think that's what Jenry did on a case study that we did with him down in Miami that was a 1940s house, Jenry Garcia with Comfort Dynamics. Yeah. As a matter of fact, we showed all the data from your equipment. But he was able to show that the encapsulation on the crawl space was not effective. Like they did not do a good job. And so one of the steps had to be to, redo that crawl space and get it really tightened and closed up. And so I think the blower door numbers then showed, that it wasn't done correctly. And then after that, it was.
Yeah. And I think, it may be helpful to go a little more detailed into that too. Like you could get, if you just want to look at the house, that's where it really helps to have the envelope area. So if you have your CFM per square foot of envelope area for the house, and then you're able to get that for the crawl space. If that crawl space is significantly higher than the rest of the house, then like you have some things to go back in there and fix.
Yeah. And I think as a crawl space, contractor, that is their focus, right? Like, I don't know if I want to go through and do a blower door on the entire house, but is there a way just to kind of figure out this space and what I'm going to do in this space? So yeah, it's very interesting. I think, and that's what I've learned so much from a lot of a lot of people in the industry out there that are pushing us to do better, right? Like we want to do better.
Yeah.
We need you as manufacturers of these equipments to help us do better and show us how we can do this, and the importance of all of us working together.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's
an awesome
exciting
community to be a part of.
It is.
Sure.
It's a great community. Yep. But we are definitely seeing it more and more. I was talking to someone the other day, and we were talking about, the advancement in our HVAC equipment and how energy efficient it is, and right sizing, how important right sizing our HVAC equipment was. And he had pulled data from a thermostat. I don't know what brand it was, but it collects data on run times and temperature and RH in the house. And the system was right sized for that application. And the AC system had been running 85% of the time and still couldn't get the RH below 60%.
Wow.
So that just goes to show more and more that, yes, we can right size, but that doesn't always mean that it's going to, effectively control the relative humidity also.
Yeah.
And they just kept on overcooling. And I think some of that 85% runtime is just overcooling to try to control that relative humidity.
Yeah.
And it wasn't able to get it. So the tighter that we build and the tighter we get our houses, the less AC runtime you need. But not only that, that system, that house is holding the temperature longer. So the system doesn't need to run as much because we're controlling it. So so many variables going into the comfort of our homes now.
Like humidity control, important even outside of places like where I would think of like Houston, like in Pacific Northwest or other regions around the states.
Well, actually, the first of all, we'll start with the Pacific Northwest, which is an interesting one because dew points are actually, don't get to the point where we need to worry about, there's not that much water in the air. We think it's like
It's
raining
surprising,
all the
yeah,
time.
exactly.
It's all that,
Yeah.
but dew points don't get low enough there,
Yes.
right? So,
Right.
so that's an interesting one, but I'll say that's pockets. There are pockets that way. I mean, if you live in the redwoods and you've got a stream running beneath your house and, you know, you're always shaded and there's other things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But Pacific Northwest isn't as much of a humidity hot spot, I
Concern.
would
Yeah.
say. We say really, if you were looking at a climate zone map and you look along the top there and it's going to be moist, there's going to be a part of that map that's marked as moist. And on a dew point map, or that pretty much dew point map and climate zone map, if you were to put them over each other, you would see that pretty much anywhere east of the Mississippi, and I would say even the states a little bit over on the left side of the Mississippi, because Oklahoma City a couple years ago had a dew point of 83 degrees.
Ooh.
So that, you know, where we call those green grass climates. Anywhere that you're getting about an inch of rain or more a week during the spring, summer, and fall, you're probably going to have to consider some sort of dehumidification strategy. Now, the farther south you go, in a traditionally built home, our temperatures are higher for longer periods of time. So if we've got a leakier house, the AC is going to be running a lot more and probably be able to handle that moisture a little bit more. Now, you'll get farther into the later into the shoulder seasons, you'll get even wintertime that your AC is not going to be running as much and dew points are high and you're going to need moisture control. But the farther north you go, you will see dew points are just as high in Maine as they are in Corpus Christi, Texas. The difference is you don't have the heat up in Maine as you do down there. So it's even more challenging. Now, it's a shorter period of time that this lasts, but you're not running your AC typically as much to be able to control that humidity. So it can become, even more challenging the farther north you go. The Mid-Atlantic is one of those that I think is most it's the mixed humid climate, we call it, where people are like, well, we get high humidity, but we also get really cold and we can get really dry. So what do? We need a humidifier and a dehumidifier. It's like, potentially you do. And then they're like, well, can we get it in the same system? Well, no, those are different technologies. Those are different technologies. Yeah, exactly. The magic box, right? Everybody wants the magic box. But really you need to have it might just be a crawl space or a basement that you need to worry about.
Right.
It might be an attic, just an attic. It might be the whole house. So usually you're going to have to think through some sort of dehumidification strategy. And if nothing else, you should be monitoring. You should be knowing in these spaces what's going on. People are like, well, where do I start? I've got a humidity problem in my house. And then it's like, okay, the first questions that we talk about is, well, what's below your home? Are you on slab? Are you on a basement? Or your crawl space? Is it a vented crawl space? Talking through what's going on below, because up to 50% of the air in the living space is going to come from below the home. So maybe we just need to tackle that, and then we'll be able to, fix what's going on in the living space. And so we'll look at that, and then we're going to monitor, and then we might have to do the whole house. Or, if we already got a really tight crawl space and the basement seems to be okay, maybe adding some, but it's not the sole contributor, then we'll look at, other areas. But, a lot of times people also say, well, I know that my house is tight and I'm not getting the proper ventilation that I need. Or maybe, which is very common, they're in a mixed humid climate and they're using exhaust only ventilation.
Yeah.
Which is
adds to the
not
problem.
What we should be doing, So it's like, okay, well, if we can add a ventilating dehumidifier, we can bring in some supply air, try to do a slight positive pressure, plus dehumidify the entire home regardless of AC runtime, then maybe that's our best option. So the good thing is we have options. We just need to sit and think through them on what that might be, and then also understand, well, are there other things I should do even before I add a dehumidifier? Like, should we do a blower door? Should we really understand how leaky we are? And if we put in that dehumidifier, is it going to be successful? Because we want it to be successful.
Yeah, well, I kind of forced myself into that position when we bought this house. It's a 30-year-old house, and it had issues. And so I knew it was going to need a dehumidifier, hands down. So that was the first thing we did. And it was pretty leaky. It was 9 ACH 50. It was about 3,000 CFM50. And I knew like one of the biggest leak points was the bonus room, right? Attic knee walls are always terrible. And so just by getting the dehumidifier in really made a night and day difference. Because, I mean, the HVAC system alone just could not handle the latent load that we have here in coastal North Carolina. And then sealing the knee walls in the bonus room, that brought my blower door down 30%.
Oh, wow.
And so it made that bonus room livable. Like, my wife uses it as her office and doesn't complain anymore. So
nice.
So yeah, having those two together, I mean, that's really made this house like to where we can kind of like, okay, we can focus on some other stuff now. We're not so uncomfortable where we just have to figure out what to do. So those two things made a huge difference. But now after being here like a little while after that, it's like, okay, well, there's still a lot to be desired. So we're going to get the rest of the leakage in the attic, this winter. And hopefully that dehumidifier won't have to work as hard. But it'll definitely still work in the shoulder seasons. That's where we really see it work hard, where we kind of least expect it. Like you'll walk outside and it's like, oh, it's nice. But then when you go inside and, nothing's running, to remove that humidity that we might produce from the inside, it's like, okay, well, it still has to work.
Our goal is to make sure that homeowners are educated and contractors are educated that, if somebody isn't comfortable in the house, it's not automatically just the HVAC system's problem. Like, we don't automatically just point fingers at that, right? There could be other things contributing, because we also don't want a homeowner to call and say, my house is uncomfortable, and the first thing they do is they're going to switch out the system.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Let's think about this. Is there, what else could be going on? And that's why, these home performance contractors that are incorporating all of this into their businesses is so important, because our houses are changing. The HVAC equipment specs are changing.
Yeah.
Our tools that we can use to identify issues, and then the products to fix them, all of them are changing rapidly. So being able to understand what is in our toolbox that we can go in and fix this with is so important.
So one of the cool things about the Santa Fe whole house dehumidifiers, you guys were the first to do ventilating, so you can kind of kill two birds with one stone. But I think one of the newest products you guys now have an 8-inch collar on there right now, and you can pull in more outside air.
Yeah. So the first two products that we incorporated that in was our 205 unit and then our 155. So now we're calling these have been the Santa Fe Ultra Series dehumidifiers, which are our ventilating dehumidifiers, but we're calling these the Ultra V Series. V is for ventilation. So now we're moving from a 6-inch duct collar to an 8-inch. And we just launched last week. The Ultra 98 is going to the V100, and the Ultra 120 is going to the V125. So the 98 and the 120 are now discontinued. And so we have the V100 and the V125, V155, and V205, all 8-inch. And the reason that we did that is because our dehumidifiers are being used more and more for the ventilation, because it's optional, right? You can block it off and not use the ventilation if you're going to use a different ventilation strategy, an ERV or, God forbid, exhaust only. But but if you have another ventilation strategy, you don't have to use that. And usually that's when someone is using an ERV because it's a super tight house. But what we were seeing was that the 6-inch because there's so many variables, and one of the variables is static on the system, on the HVAC system. So that 6-inch might not be able to bring in enough outdoor air in order to meet whatever, 62.2, ASHRAE 62.2, or whatever standard, whatever number they were trying to get for the size of the house and the capacity of the dehumidification that house needed. So the capacity of the dehumidifier was right for that size of house, but we weren't able to bring in enough outdoor air for the size of that house. And so now we've upsized that to 8 inches, put in a little bit more powerful fan, and now we can meet that ventilation easier. Of course, we still got to think about static. I mean, it's not going to overcome anything you throw at it. You can't just throw, 6 inches of static, on that. You got to think about what's going on. But now it's more all aligned based on where the industry has been taking us. And that's, we're seeing higher static on systems now. And so it's more into consideration of what we need to think about of applying a dehumidifier on an HVAC system and making sure that we're designing and sizing our ductwork correctly for that as well. Now, we do know most of the time, not most of the time, a high percentage of the time that an air conditioner and a dehumidifier typically don't run at the same time. And that's the goal, right? Like,
right.
I say set it up so that you can lock those two out from running at the same time. When the AC comes on, let it run and move as much moisture as possible. And then when the AC shuts off and the RH is still high, then the dehumidifier comes on. We want the AC removing as much moisture as possible. We should be setting those up to remove as much moisture as possible when it's running. But, that's the hope. So then the static doesn't become such an issue if we do that. It's making it's designing our dehumidifiers and updating them onto where the industry is going. Florida has gone to requiring R2 insulation in the cabinets of the dehumidifiers. Because if it's in a vented attic, you do have the potential of that unit getting condensation on it. So I don't know where they got the R2 insulation. But so now we've added R2 insulation in all of our V series units, which also helps with noise a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, which, it's a win-win kind of there. So, we've got a new digital control on our V series units. And actually on the Advanced Dry 110, it's the same control that's on our V series ducted units, where it's digital, where you can turn it on and select anywhere between, I think it's 40 to 60. So you 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. Use a little button you push, and you can, choose your relative humidity. But we also now have a remote sensor, because we have a terminal block on all those units. We have a 2x2 inch remote sensor that will take low voltage wire to the terminal block, and you can put that remote sensor anywhere in the living space, anywhere, like maybe in the farthest corner of the crawl space, and you can keep the Advanced Dry 110 right next to the door, right? So we know it's going to be maintained, because nobody wants to crawl into that crawl space, no matter how nice it is. But that remote sensor then can be placed in the living space or anywhere, and then you just select the RH on that digital control, and that remote sensor will activate the dehumidifier as soon as the RH, wherever it's located, gets above that set point.
Cool.
So yeah, I mean, lots of exciting things with these new units.
So from a contractor's perspective, because I know we have a lot of those listening, what's maybe one or two biggest mistakes that you see contractors do when they're installing a dehumidifier?
The number one is forgetting the backdraft damper on the supply side. When you attach that, the supply of the dehumidifier onto the supply side of the HVAC system, you have to have a backdraft damper on there. And they're like, well, your unit's not going to be able to overcome the static and be able to. It will. We will be able to. Oh, just don't put that backdraft damper exactly on the line or the edge of where that ductwork is. Right. You got to put it a little bit farther back into the ductwork for the dehumidifier. Give it the chance to open up. But if you put it like right even with the supply ductwork from the HVAC system, you're right. It probably won't be able to overcome that static. Just put it a little bit. But that number one is the thing that probably we see is forgetting to put that backdraft damper in. The other one that we see a lot is, and it's an option. There's no doubt that tying the supply from the dehumidifier onto the return of the HVAC system is an option. We have it on our manuals. It comes with a lot of cautions. But we know sometimes in retro, we just can't get on that supply side. But we need to think this through when we do that. And, this is one of the things in Florida also. You're not allowed to tie the supply of the dehumidifier into the return side of the HVAC system. And again, it goes back to us talking about a dehumidifier, a byproduct of dehumidification is generating heat.
Yeah.
So when we put that heat over those AC coils, we are reducing the amount of water that HVAC, that AC system potentially can remove, because we're heating those coils. And so we don't want to heat the coils. We want the AC to remove as much water as possible when it's running. The other thing is when that AC system shuts off, there is a pint per ton of water on those coils when the system shuts off. So you've got a 3-ton system, you got 3 pints of water on those coils. Now, if the system shuts off and the relative humidity is still high and the dehumidifier comes on, we re-evaporate all that back into the living space.
Yeah, it just picks it back up and takes it into the living space. Yeah.
So, and I've had that. I've had a contractor call me and just lay into me that I installed your dehumidifier 2 weeks ago, and the relative humidity in the homeowner's living space has actually gone up. And I was like, okay. I mean, and so we we calmed him down and talked through like what was the install, and they went in on the return side. And so he was able to go back out and tie into the supply side, and everything was fine. So, but again, we have lots of install options. There's pros and cons of them all. And so, our recommended is a dedicated return to the dehumidifier and then tie into the supply. Remembering that backdraft damper. I would say for most of the time, as long as we're not, again, the first supply register right over the lazy boy, this will work a majority of the time. But our houses are getting tighter. And so if we're in a tight, high performance home, we might need to run the fan on the HVAC system when the dehumidifier is running to get better mixing of that warm air with the return air from the house before it's delivered to the living space. So, if we do have customers start complaining that I'm feeling this dehumidified warm air, then we're going to probably have to activate that fan on the air handler, the HVAC system when the dehumidifier is running.
Assuming you have the room to work on a supply trunk, about how much room would you recommend to have between where the dehumidifier ties in and then the first supply coming off of it?
Typically at least a couple feet if possible. If we can. Just to try to get some of that air moving down before it just goes, comes out here and then, boom, we got the first one right there, So if we can get a couple feet, that would be great.
Cool.
Those are really the the biggest ones, that I would say that recommendations that I often make sure to hit when I am talking to contractors, and they're fairly simple systems. We just have to make sure that we're thinking it through when we're looking. I mean, the challenge is retro's always tough. And a lot of times those contractors are walking into somebody else's work.
Yeah.
And that's the challenging part, right? They're like, well, we didn't install this system. Not sure why it's this way. Let's think this through. And we've got, a very technical team. And this is what we do quite a bit is, walking through like, what are we dealing with here? And what are we looking at? And how can we tackle this? I think that's where, we did invent the whole house ventilating dehumidifier back in the mid 90s. Ken Gehring, AKA Teddy Bear on the HVAC Talk Forum. I think Ken's 85. And he spends his time on there talking to people about moisture issues.
That's awesome.
I think he has about 13,000 posts on there. People seek them out, but he's also the first one to tell you when a dehumidifier is not going to fix it. Nice. And I've been very lucky to have him as a mentor. To really, and he's always been very involved. I mean, in the building science community. I think he was at the first building science summer camp. I mean, he's an icon in the industry and has always thought these things through because we do want it to be successful. We don't want you to just put in a dehumidifier to sell dehumidifiers. We want it to be successful. So we do need to think through all these other things that are going on to make sure that this is going to work.
Solve the real problem. Yeah.
Exactly. That the contractor is going to be successful and the homeowner is going to be happy. But yeah, I think our expertise stems from that. I've been called on jobs. Greg Nelson down in Wilmington, where you are. Yep. We've gone on jobs. We've looked at projects, and one of the houses had our competitors' units on it, and we walked in, and they're like, "Yeah, they're not working." And I'm like, "Well, they're just not installed right. Yeah. They are working, so let's get it installed right." And I think Greg's was like, he's like, "You're not going to try to sell me?" And I'm like, "Let's just fix this. The homeowner will be happy. You're happy now." Yeah. That you don't have to go to them and, tell them that they're going to have to rip these out and put in new ones. And that's just it. We want dehumidifiers to be installed correctly because if the technology gets a bad rap, we all get a bad rap.
Yeah.
And that's not what we want. We want, these are solutions. These are viable solutions. And there's plenty of business for all of us out there, right? So let's make sure that we're, that we're all doing this correctly. Yep.
Yeah. I feel like there's some parallels between how, Santa Fe approaches product design versus how we do it too, as far as just reducing user error. Like when you were talking about the integrated P-trap, and how that can prevent, an error in installing one externally. Yep. It's just like, man, that's kind of how we think about things too. Like putting color-coded ports on a manometer to kind of, keep them from hooking things up wrong. And so then that just makes them happier with your product. The homeowner's happier and everybody wins. So
exactly. No, it's a very exciting time to be in this industry. And I think as we advocate to getting younger people into the trades, and we have people out there like Dustin Cole and Jenry and all of these younger guys coming in that are and women, lots of women coming. I mean, more women coming in, which is amazing. That's and awesome. Them embracing and really the greatest thing that I see is they are so open with their knowledge and their education and their passion to help each other. It's just so phenomenal to see.
That is awesome, man. That definitely help grow the industry.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's fun too watching somebody get into it initially and then just they solve that first puzzle and then just get super excited for the next one and then and then everybody's always eager to share, just like you said. So
and then they got their cheerleaders behind them, and then and even pushing them to do better, which is what we need. We all need to be pushing to do better.
Yeah.
And supporting each other. So,
For
it's
sure.
good.
Awesome.
Well, it's cool to see you guys designing products, straight from industry feedback.
Yes.
And just making things better that way. So you can definitely appreciate
it. We appreciate it. Well, thank you. I appreciate you guys having me.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
Oh, man, you're fantastic.
Yeah, maybe if we get into some projects together, if you come back down to Wilmington again, maybe we can have you back on. So
yeah, that would be great.
That'd be awesome.
That would be great.